Well, at a time, the Chinese buying some of these farms may have treated you better in the amount of money they're willing to pay in order to get this land. And as you know, Chinese do it for a purpose. Everything they do here is for a purpose. And ultimately, that's to defeat the United States of America.
Mm-hmm.
They've told us what they want to do. And my military friends and veterans tell me that when your enemy tells you what they're going to do, believe them. That's what China's going to do. Well, we've put through legislation in Congress that does not allow China to purchase land anymore.
Amen.
So that's done. But how we help farmers that have been in the business of farming, which is quite a business. I met with Farm Bureau last night, and I said, you know, as I've told you all along, you have to be the most optimistic people in the world to do the job you do, but you're also the most pessimistic people in the world, because you deal with so much change, not simply the weather and Mother Nature, as it were, but government, bureaucracy, regulation, tariffs and trade agreements and all of the rest that go on, and yet you still come back. But there are a lot of older farmers that are tired out and saying, what do I have for the future? And so they've sold to solar farms, they've sold windmills, and you can't blame them when the government gives incentive to get into renewable fuels, and these corporations that are Apex and others that are coming in trying to lease or buy the land to put these solar fields on, they're offering far more than the farmer could get by leasing it out to someone else to farm it, or maybe even to sell it on the normal market. So while all the farmers surrounding them are frustrated because now when they want to rent some land or lease some land, those lease and rentals have gone up, because now the value, because of the solar field and what they paid for it, was exorbitant. We've seen not only the federal government, which has now done away with the mandate on producing wind, solar, renewable fuels, but also requiring us to drive certain vehicles, EV vehicles, by 2030, 2040, whatever. We've done away with that, thanks to the Trump administration. You can choose what you want to drive. If you want to have an EV, go for it. They're pretty cheap right now, since the mandate isn't there anymore. But the same is true with what our governor's done in mandating by 2040 that we are on renewable energy, 50% minimum, I think it was. So of course, all of that's gone on, and then tax dollars has been taken from state coffers to give incentives and tax benefits in order to develop these lands. That has to change. And that's changed with an administration, as we've seen in Washington, and you probably have to change with administration in Lansing as well. Beyond that, all I can do is say for farmers what we did in ultimately making the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act back in 2020, 2019, making it permanent by passing the Working Families Tax Cut bill, all of the One Big Beautiful Bill, which made that permanent as well, and stopped the 27% tax increase from taking place in January of this year, and gave incentives to people to stay in the business and ultimately pass it on to family without the huge death tax hit. That's the benefit we gave to continue to grow the economy and do things in a right-headed fashion. This is the first time in decades that we passed 12 appropriations bills. That's what it takes to fund the government. 12 appropriations bills that cover all of the aspects of government. We passed it on time, underspending of last year. Let me state that again. On time and underspending of last year. All 12. And they came out of the Appropriations Committee and under regular order with bipartisan votes to get all 12 of them out. 11 went to the Senate, 11 passed ultimately the Senate, went to the president who signed it, under budget of last year. And then the deal that was made was reneged upon by my Democrat colleagues for Homeland Security. Why? Because they don't like law enforcement. They don't like ICE and Customs and Border. They don't want the border to be secure as it is now. 12 months, no illegal incursions. That's amazing. Now we can work on some other things relative to farming. Workforce and the like, legal workforce to come in and pick up the slack where it is. But they reneged on that deal, and so we've been fighting for 70, I think it ended up 76 days of a shutdown of Homeland Security, which included TSA, which included the Coast Guard, which included FEMA, which included certainly Customs and Border, Secret Service. You've seen how valuable Secret Service is. And taking one for the president just a week and a half ago. And ultimately we had to, after passing that bill in the House, full bill, full funding for Homeland Security. If TSA is working for us, why shouldn't they be paid? If ICE is working for us, why shouldn't they be paid? Especially in Minnesota and in Illinois, Chicago, Los Angeles, they had to also do law enforcement because law enforcement was pulled away from them. For 76 days we went without paying them, and thankfully the president was willing to find areas in his budget, administrative budget, to pull funds from that have to be paid back, but ultimately weren't being used at the present to be able to pay for TSA employees, Coast Guard and others. We passed that last week. When we come back, there'll be a reconciliation 2.0 bill coming from the Senate that will pay ICE and Customs and Borders as well. Fortunately, in the One Big Beautiful Bill, we did put funding in for ICE agents and Customs and Border agents, but their support staff wasn't being paid, and they should be paid as well. America needs law enforcement. They need to make sure that we have legal immigrants in this country, legal immigrants, and illegals are not here. And so going back to all of that, that's what we did, and hopefully it will encourage farming, agriculture, but also general business and general taxpayers to have a budget for the first time that was, it's interesting, in the Farm Bill, we passed that. First time in 8 years. It's supposed to be reauthorized every 5 years. We got that passed on Thursday last week. Budget neutral. How do we make it budget neutral? Well, one, we passed a good significant portion of the actual agricultural portion of the budget, the Farm Bill. And I'll remind some of you, the Farm Bill is called the Farm Bill, but only 20% of the Farm Bill is agriculture. The rest of it is WIC, SNAP, food assistance programs, welfare programs. And it's put that way for a reason, to force farm state legislators to support the welfare programs as well if you're going to get your Farm Bill passed. But we had a $200 billion savings from right-sizing the SNAP program, taking people who were illegally on SNAP, some who were driving Mercedes and Lamborghinis and had multiple SNAP cards through fraud.
Can you give an example of that?
Through fraud. $200 billion of savings. They got the Social Security numbers, they used them, and sadly, the bureaucracy in government, Democrat and Republican administrations, didn't catch it until this time because of all the effort we're doing on trying to weed out fraud in every area of our funding system. And again, that's come over just kind of letting things go, allowing government to get so big that it was easy to let things go and say, well, a bureaucrat will handle that. Well, they were missing it at the very least. And that's the type of savings we're finding by weeding it out. Let's go to the next question.
Earl from Jackson had a lot of questions, and I think we'll get to most of them.